Hey guys, good morning. Hmm, Back for session number 4 here. I feel like I have a lot more light today. Hmm, Not a bad thing, I guess. So welcome, and I'm going to keep an eye on the waiting room, make sure I catch people here. Let's see. We're here for session number 4 already of this retreat series that I decided to bring forth. Oh, I need to turn off the sound on my notifications. Yeah, and this is really all about helping you with your practices of how you take care of you and, like I like to say, how you tune you. And we're talking mentally, physically, emotionally, and most of all, energetically, because it's all energy. And you're made of energy, and I'm made of energy. And so our thoughts are energy. Everything happening in the mind is energy, right? Vibration, frequency. Our bodies are energy. Everything happening in our bodies is energy, good and bad. Our feelings are energy, right? And really an indicator of our energy. How we're feeling tells us a lot about what energy we're in. And then what's so exciting is changing how we feel, taking care of how we feel changes our energy. So that's what we're doing here. We're playing with these various tools that, yes, come from traditions and systems like yoga and meditation. But I love to remind yoga just means union, to join, to connect. Meditation really just is referring to what are we focusing on? What are we contemplating? How are we using our attention and our awareness and playing with our consciousness like that? So we're using some of those tools here in this retreat series. And my goal and aim always is to help you learn how to do this for yourself, that you don't need anyone else to tune you, and that actually it's totally up to you to tune you. Nobody else can do it for you, it turns out. So I'm here to share some of the things I like to use and teach and work with and play with and experiment with. And I'm always learning and growing my practices. So I love to share right from where I'm at with awarenesses and practices, perspectives, and psychology, because we're really talking about all those P words. Practices, perspectives, and our psychology is all what we're tuning here. And yeah, so I'm loving to share ways that you can tune you, hoping that you're getting new ideas or remembering old ideas that work for you, that help you tune you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually too. And then, of course, yeah, energetically, because it's all energy. So yeah, that's what we're doing here. And I'd love to invite you to settle in and get a hold of a journal or a pad of paper or a piece of paper, because I want to offer a moment with that as one of the very important practices. That was last week's session. So if you didn't catch that, go back and find that one on the YouTube. And yeah, that one we talked about and did some specific journaling and gratitude. But really, I want to be weaving in a lot of these practices each time, like things like breath, we're doing each time. Like things like just being in our bodies in a little bit more peaceful, present way, and even being willing to sit in a position that feels comfortable, adjust as needed. Help yourself feel supported and upright if that's how you want to take this in. And then also be willing to move and stretch when you want to. So How about we do that for a moment, just even in our chairs, as a way to bring ourselves in. But yeah, welcome and join us for some tuning. I'm going to take you through some practices that I love to use. But today's focus is 3 different pieces of practice tools that I have aware of that are totally forms of yoga, totally forms of meditation, and really cool ways we can tune ourselves. So today we're going to be focusing on mudras, which are the hand poses, which there are thousands of hand poses, and they're a form of energy work themselves and a way to hone our focus and our attention. Definitely come from yoga and meditation. So I want to share a little bit about mudras and even have you experience that a little bit. Learn how to play with that if you want to bring that into your current practices. And what's so cool with a lot of these things is you can do them anytime, anywhere. I mean, really, my biggest vote is for all of us getting into some sort of morning. Well, we all have a morning routine, actually. That's something that's interesting. If you look at it, like you already have a morning routine, probably. You have things that you do each morning, right? And they're tuning you. So whether it's petting your cat or watching the news or sitting with your cup of coffee or taking a walk, right? Or opening your emails, right? So those various things are going to tune us and are tuning us. And in my opinion, having an effect on how our days are going, because what we're doing in our mornings is tuning us mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically, and even spiritually or not, right? Tuning us to feel more spiritually connected or not, if that's something we're interested in. So when we look at the fact that we already have a morning routine, my awareness is how powerful it is when we get more conscious with that morning routine, right? And really weave in some of these kinds of tools, these kinds of practices that really hone our perspectives and our psychology and our physiology. And yeah, because the power of a morning routine and just the power of our mornings energetically and even spiritually, I think is one of the easier times to get our momentum going. And either way, again, what we're doing in the morning is creating our momentum. So it's not like, oh, maybe I should start letting my mornings create my day. It's like, well, your mornings probably already are creating your day. So if you're having great days, then keep doing what you're doing in your mornings, right? If you're not, or if you're really like wavering or feeling unsteady with how you're feeling emotionally, mentally, physically, or, just feeling really disconnected spiritually, then I would vote for looking at what you're doing in your mornings as the easiest and best way to change that. And so weaving in things like what we're doing in this series. So things like even what we talked about first week, which is just that attitude of non-judgment and kindness and compassion that we bring in with all of these practices, comes from really all the traditions and the religions talk about how important things like love and forgiveness and kindness are. But yeah, actually with ourselves. So that's like some of the biggest medicine that we get. I'm just checking to make sure I don't have anyone in the waiting room. Look at my Sheena. I hope that you can hear me, Sheena. Okay, good. So yeah, owning the power of the mornings, but not that we can't use these practices any time of day either. That's the thing. That's what I was starting to say too, is things like a mudra. You could do something like this in the middle of a conversation at any time of day, for instance, and it could be a tool that could help you shift and tune yourself, right? And because it's got so many elements of how it helps us. So both aspects, I'm voting that we are going to pick up these practices, remember them to use as part of mornings and as part of just throughout the day, how we're taking care of ourselves and tuning ourselves. So mudras is one of them. Mantra, I want to talk to you about, which most of us think that means, mantra means like word, and the power of our words. So yes, it can mean like those Sanskrit words, like that word and sound Om is an example of a mantra. Oh, my kitty's rubbing against my camera. I'm glad you want to give them your love cuddles. Uh, but it also, to me, mantra means just the awareness of the power of our words, and that our word totally is our wand, right? And this is something I'm wanting to get even way more conscious with myself, whether it's just how I'm talking to myself in my head, getting more conscious with that, and more, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, just making better choices with how I'm using that power of my word. So yeah, whether it's in my head, out loud, with others. And so you could even say also journaling is a form of playing with the power of mantra, which is word. And also mantra brings up the fact that our word has sound and vibration, right? So it's energy work we're doing when we use or are aware of the power of mantra, whether it's Om or thank you or right, I love you. But also, where was I going? It's the power. Oh, that brings in the next piece too that I want to say is sound. That sound is its own huge, and nowadays a lot of us are even more aware because there's these like sound bath sessions, right? And more people are going to those kinds of sessions and allowing that, which is so cool that you just lay there and someone's playing any sort of instrument, and it's energetically shifting you and tuning you and changing you and helping you let stuff go, free stuff up, because that sound is energy. You're made of energy. All of that's energy. So it's amazing to just be aware of. And so you can do it that way, but you can also do it in simple ways. Like I have my little yoga bell that I'll bring out for us to experiment. Well, one of my little yoga bells, right? Let's see if I can do that. But how the power of sound as such a tool for meditation and focus and the mind and our energy. But then it's also about just like the power of sound, meaning also the power of silence, right? That's an aspect of sound. And that's part of what we really play with and work with in all these practices, just weaving that in as the medicine that it is. And then also just sound like listening to music that we love is a really, 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 really good tool. It's one of the things I'm always doing. And when you think about the energy shifts, right, that happen when we put on music. Okay, good. When we think about that and get into that, that's what we're talking about. Becoming aware of the power of sound, playing with that, using that, and weaving that into our practices of self-care and even spirituality, right? Because all those tools, mudra, mantra, and sound, are all practices also that can be about helping us reconnect spiritually. So pretty exciting to play with these simple tools. And then, yeah, that's really always my approach, is to give it to you simply so that you feel like you can use it for yourself. So all of these aspects, we could get super complex and in depth. And there's lots of things, even I don't know about all these things, right? But I'm here to deliver to you what I do know and to help you now know and understand and remember why you want to weave in things like that. So say even in your mornings, the power of being aware of sound as such a tuning tool for yourself, right? So whether that means allowing for some time in silence or being really aware of what you are listening to, whether it's like audios or music, right? And then you can intentionally do those things to really up your vibe and change how you're feeling. So I'm a big fan of that. It's pretty magical. There really is a magical feeling element to things like sound. And then again, getting aware of mantra, which means word, and the power of our words and using that in various ways, because that too, though, is a version of sound. So they go together. And then mudra, which is partly weaving in our wisdom of even like reflexology aspects, the energy connections and meridians in the body, and how that works, but also just working with mind and focus and intention, and things like mudras, which all have a meaning to them. Each mudra has its own meaning. Like there's a mudra for hope, there's a mudra for harmony, there's a mudra for connection. So it's a way to anchor in an intention, right? And just decide, I'm making this moment about this feeling or this intention or this focus. And it's a way to physically embody that, right? And so there's a magic to that. So yeah, I love, not to cheapen the actual physiological changes that we create through all this by calling it magic. But it feels like magic because it's very real, right? But to me, I like that word magic because it makes me remember that if it's all energy, and that's what can make it feel so magical. And if it's all spiritual too, if we get into the aspect that we are God and God energy, right? And if that's the reality and the perspective we want to be in, that's also what our practices are helping us do, to just root ourselves back in that awareness, back in that focus. And how much differently do we feel in our bodies, even when we're remembering that, if that's what we really like to remember. I'm talking to myself a lot of the time when I'm talking to you. So yeah, how much differently do we feel and think and focus and function just if we're tuning ourselves spiritually more each day through our moments, and especially in our mornings. But things like a mudra, right, can be part of helping us with our spirit. And probably the most famous mudras is that prayer mudra, right? Which isn't something that just yogis use, but there's a real power to it, right? And I remember finding, yeah, I was guided to do this in a lot of yoga classes years ago when I would first be out taking yoga classes with others. And a lot of us yoga teachers might start and end practices with this prayer position. And I would notice how it's so centering, right? And so calming. But a lot of us maybe don't bring it home. That's the kind of thing. We might only do this position when our yoga teacher tells us to at the end of class, right? But it's the kind of thing, if we start to just bring in this mudra more, even if we already were someone who prays or has moments where we're like connecting with spirit or our intuition or just in meditation, but to add something like this mudra, right? And its intention for us to even think like, ooh, this is about prayer and being more focused on my spiritual connection, right? My spiritual awareness. So yeah, you can start to see and feel the power of adding something like these simple mudras, right? But it's worth it, right? And for me too, this is refreshing my use of these practices to talk to you about these things, because a lot of these things I love, but don't use as much as I could or would like to. So I'm glad that this is reminding me too, to use my mudras more, my mantra, my use of sound. So good. So yeah. So let's do a little of that. But let's start by stretching the body a little bit, just even in our chairs, right? There's a neighbor going by with some music. And so I might even scoot back so I can guide you. I think I said I was going to do this a couple weeks ago here in a chair, like some sitting exercises you can do. I'm going to take off my jacket. So just in like 3 minutes, and you want to sit towards the edge of your chair so that you are nice and upright, right? And you want your feet, hips width apart and straight. Got my hoodie hair. So sitting up nice and straight, relaxing into our position. And that's one of the things we practice with all these tools is just relaxing more. Because I don't know about you, but whenever I take a look, I'm often doing quite the opposite on the inside of my body, just out of habit. And I think a lot of us are there in our nervous system. So just settling into our position and getting a little still and intentionally just relaxing more as much as we can, but also just noticing if it's like hard to relax, there's a lot of tension, just noticing that. It's like, oh, it's all energy. And wow, I'm holding a lot of tension. There's a lot of tightness. There's maybe a lot of energy. And even just noticing, how is your body feeling as we get started? Really good place to start any practice. And bringing in right away that non-judgment with whatever you're noticing, with what's true with your body here. Not good or bad or right or wrong, right? Just simply what's true right now, and just ready to honor that, work with that. And even just noticing what your energy feels like as we get started. We get to just become more the observer and the witness as part of these practices. And so we're already starting to do that, right? And yeah, even just becoming aware of how it's going on the inside in the mind, aware of like how our day before this has been, what we've been thinking about, focusing on, remembering, worrying about. Just kind of tapping in with that non-judgment. But that's valuable to notice versus not noticing, right? Because there's something happening there in that mind. And then let's just already add a little bit more helpful breath. So give yourself a little bit slower, longer belly-shaped breath. And a lot slower, longer of an exhale. Good. And then let's interlace the hands and turn the palms away. Oh, and stretch into that. And then bring your arms up overhead. And we're sitting up nice and straight. My angle looks kind of weird, but sitting up straight, arms beside the ears, breathing into the pose for about a minute. And with all yoga, it should never hurt. You want to go to where it's as much as you can do before it hurts and work that and breathe into that, and even straighten the elbows. Lots of breath. Even looking up. But that one's a quick posture fix. Open it up. The heart and chest, neck and shoulders, straightening us out. Feel the relief of that. Breathe into that. And now you can actually even breathe more easily now that we've unrounded ourselves. And then I almost wonder if I want to show you a side view again. Side view for a hip stretch I want you to know about. Sitting up straight, cross your ankle over your knee and sit up like this for about a minute and breathe into that. Relax your face and jaw. That's going to help the rest of your body, including your nervous system, relax. Add that slow, long breath. I'm going to turn back front. Good. So about a minute with that stretch. It's going to straighten out your hips and pelvis, which is really important and needed for all of us these days. And you're doing that energy work with your breath as you breathe into tight places. Good. And then put the foot down, sit up straight. Then when you're ready, do the other side, which is probably going to be different because most of us have those left and right differences. And that's why we want to do this kind of stuff, to get that more evened out and breathe into this. Whatever's true here, but sit up as aligned as you can and breathe. And just noticing what's true in the body as you do any of your work with it, and being in that non-judgment, that kindness, compassion. But noticing how it getting into the body actually feels better. It's a mindfulness practice to do anything to get us in the body. Bringing our attention more present here and now. Using that breath is helping. One more breath here. Good. And then put the foot on the floor. And we can do some little sitting cats and dogs. or we're creating a little arch and a little rounding. Inhaling as we arch, exhale as we round. And that's going to just stretch, realign us some more, even as a little strengthening. It's amazing energy work, getting our energy moving, freeing up stuck energy, bringing in fresh energy, even helping digestion. This one's squeezing our organs a little bit, purifying. Good. So just like 4 or 5 of those. Great. And then just pause. Notice how you feel. Give yourself an integrating breath. Right? And then what's so nice is we've already, just in those simple couple things, changed our physiology, right? Which means we're changing how we feel, which means we're changing our energy. And so just even helping our body and our energy like that is going to shift and change how our mind is thinking and focusing, and even get us in a different place spiritually to be even more ready to feel connected like that, right? With that energy work we just did to ourselves. How cool is that? At any time you add even just like a half smile to the face, we now know that sends some of that serotonin to your brain that those mood boosting pharmaceuticals are built to do. When we have things like antidepressants we're getting help with more serotonin in the brain. So when we do something, a lot of these practices actually, but even things like just adding a little bit of a smile on your face sends that serotonin to your brain. How cool is that? So, okay, I'm scooching up and I'm gonna sit. So you two sit comfortably and take a drink of your something if you have it nearby. And so, talking about these mudras, let's try a few of those, right? So the first, probably the most famous mudra, right? It's almost in like car commercials now, is this classic index finger to thumb mudra. So let's invite you to just add that to your hands, however you're sitting. Maybe we could do palms up. You could do your hands in any position here, and whether you were just doing it in one hand or both hands. But so setting that in your hands and then just relaxing everywhere else, right? And then continuing to be with your breath. A slow, long breath is going to continue to be a great idea. And the focus on relaxing and softening. Remember how just that changes your energy so much when you relax more. And then all these things are helping us be able to relax more, right? So this mudra has a correlation with this idea of this all being about connection, and more like even like spiritual connection with our heart, our soul, our God, our source, right? Our inner being, whatever you like to see it as, our spirit team. Maybe you have a sense of both, but just that focus on connection is what this mudra is about. So just putting this gesture in our hands, right, is a way to anchor that intention and just like decide we're focusing on that more, feeling into that more, that sense of connection, more like spiritual connection, connection with ourselves, connection with others, connection with the earth, the universe, whatever maybe all of the above, right? And so just feeling that focus on connection through just adding this mudra, and then always adding relaxation, breath, more in that listening mode with our mind throughout this, right? Which is more of a meditative mind, just more of a listening mind. Here and now, more feeling, sensing, listening. Great. Isn't that so cool? So let's try a couple other mudras just so you can kind of see if you feel some of the power of it with the different intentions. So how about this one that is the mudra for harmony? What we're going to do is on each hand, and continue to just get comfortable in your seat, we're going to have like a circle, thumb to index finger, and we're going to interlace those circles. And then we're going to match up the fingers like this. So that's the harmony mudra. And these can be really fun to do with kids, younger people, because again, they just really bring in even more focus, you know, and so even this kind of thing would be really tricky for like a little kid, but they might be even just interested in trying it. And that's where it's like, even if you don't get it perfectly, just like a yoga pose. So, but this one, harmony, right? And just deciding, oh yeah, I'm making this mudra because I'm going to focus on, feel into, make it about harmony right now for me, whatever that means, whatever that feels like. And again, even if we just do it for 10 seconds or 1 minute or 10 minutes, right? And then again, just add your relaxing, your breath. Breathe into that harmony, relax into it. And maybe we could even like bring to mind image if there's something that comes up as we think about harmony, what that might feel like or look like, or something that might represent that for us. And feel how we're getting to like play with and change our state of being with all of these practices, which is really exciting and leading edge. Hi, Cuddles. Good. So that's that harmony mudra. Awesome. And we talked about that prayer mudra, which I would vote that more of us bring in and breathe into. Feel how centering this mudra is. Really like anchoring us to the center of our being. And maybe even into that idea of having like a divine center that we're letting our practices be about, helping us connect with, right? And reconnect with. Breathe into that. Relax into that. Cuddles wanted to come up for that part. Hey, baby. Good. So those are just a few mudras, right? And again, there are thousands of mudras out there. So if you're interested in more mudras, you can certainly, you know, look up on the internet and find charts and charts of all sorts of mudras, and each mudra has a different meaning and word that goes with it. So now you just know a little bit more about how and why to use such things, and you can use them all on their own, or you can weave them into other practices, right? Like one of my friends who is a runner, and that's one of her practices that tunes her, she would add mudras to a run, right? So you could add a mudra to a run or a walk or time in the bath or any other activity, right? Again, even just in conversation, in a challenging moment, something we could even kind of secretly be doing to tune ourselves, right? With that focus, how we're feeling, that intention. Super cool, right? So that's a little bit on mudras for you. Those hand poses, which again, there are thousands of. And then in theory, you could even be making up your own, right? Doesn't have to be that someone else made it a mudra. In fact, one of my favorite teachers, Eric Schiffman, who's really one of the master yoga teachers on the planet at this time. He's been teaching the teachers for like 40 years. So he's really teaching that yoga is something that is always evolving and very creative and really about making it your own eventually. And he has a style he calls freedom style yoga, which is really just eventually, once you learn some things, to just turn on music, for instance, and just like let your body guide you, do whatever you're guided to do. And that's even how his classes are, where he'll just turn on music. Everybody in the room's doing something different, but they're like channeling their own yoga, right? Which might mean just laying there. It might mean doing a handstand. It might mean a mudra, right? It might mean a breath practice, right? And then I love hoping to share with you that it could also mean someone might pull out their journal. But he'll say He'll encourage when people are doing poses, because he does also lead people through poses sometimes. He'll say mudra size the pose, meaning like, you know, if your hands were just going to be like this in a pose or like this, that you can be creative and just mudra size it. It's just kind of like give it its own expression, right? And that's so cool. So yeah, so I let myself mudra size my poses more in my daily use of the poses. So that's another way you can play too, is to add those mudras to your use of any movement or stillness. So that's a little bit on mudras. Hope that helps you. And then again, as part of this series, I'm hooking you up with a free copy of my last yoga book called Feel Better Now. It's on Amazon. But in that book, I have all these tools. So there's a chapter on mudras with some more that I suggest and how to use them. But yeah, if you'd like a free copy, make sure you reach out so I can get it to you, a free PDF version. So that's mudras for us. Move, breathe, stretch, take that in. And so the next idea, mantra, right? Meaning words, the power of our words. Yes, with Sanskrit words, which were some of the original language being used when things like yoga was first being talked about. So even the word yoga is a Sanskrit word, which means, again, union, to join, to connect. So Om is another Sanskrit word or Sanskrit sound, which is kind of the classic mantra, again, that most of us now know about. So that's a version of using mantra. And some people like to chant mantras that are even more complex, that have meaning to them, right, as part of their practices and from that Sanskrit language. So that's something I have played with some. I am not as strongly into it right now, so it's not something I'm going to necessarily try to guide you through. But I think that's what most people think of when they think of mantra. They think, oh, you mean we're going to be chanting. So sure, chanting could be just Om, and part of the sound of Om. Om is said to represent all things, like it's the sound of God or the sound of the universe or the sound of creation. So there could be a lot of power to using that sound and chanting it, right? And again, because it's all energy, and the energy of even our voice, the frequency of that, the energy of our word or making that sound right is powerful and potent and can do a lot for us. So Om, just to touch on that before I talk about how it doesn't have to be Sanskrit words, but Om, O-M, the way that we would do Om if you're interested. And it can be really neat to use a sound like Om and even to chant it, because it is going to be a real powerful tuning mechanism for us. So Om is meant to be really drawn out, really long, and a chance for us to like extend our use of our voice and our breath. So making it a long, lengthened out sound. It's part of the power of the experience. But also the sound Om is really broken up into like 3 parts, or even 4, you could say, with Ah at the start, O kind of in the middle, and then and then kind of the 4th sound would be the silence at the end, allowing for that. So it would be like Ah, O. And then you take a deep breath in. You want to do that with me? Ah, let's do it again. Big breath in. Feel the energy of what you're doing. And how about we just take a deep breath in and then a long exhale after that. Out of your mouth or nose. And just notice how that feels. That feels really different and better to me. Again, I'm loving this is reminding me to do this more because I don't do a lot of ohms lately. But the power of what we just did with that, right? For so many reasons. Because we harnessed our attention, our focus, we're using the power of our sound, of our voice, right? Of our word. And even if we get into the meaning of that word, the sound moving through our bodies, absolutely shifting and changing our physiology, even freeing up stuck energy, even helping release stored trauma, right? The sound moving out from us and even affecting our environment, right? Super cool. And the sound helping us reconnect, right? And even quiet that mind. Did you notice that? That maybe you're feeling a little more calm, a little more quiet in the mind. So a lot of power to mantra for a lot of those reasons. But then also just the power of any words is part of becoming more conscious, is to start to realize, which I'm still really, really, really getting this, but how much our word is absolutely one of our biggest powers, right? And it's 100% energy. So whatever we're saying out loud, whatever we're saying in our heads, whatever we're writing down is potent, is having an effect, is a creative power of ours, right? And definitely affecting our physiology, definitely affecting our mental health, right? Definitely affecting what we're creating in the world, in our realities, right? Because it is our wand, that word. So it's really owning that as someone who, if you want to be up leveling that consciousness, right? Which I do. It's being aware, like, okay, my word is so powerful. And it's one of my biggest powers is my word, which shows up in my speech and my thoughts, right? So it's not judging ourselves for that, but yeah, that's part of what we're doing with all these practices too, right? With any forms of meditation, any and all of this is really looking even more at how we're using that mind, how we're using the power of that thinking, how we're using the magic of our words, right? With ourselves, with others, in the world, on paper, and then playing with it in a fun way too. Like, okay, this is my magic. So when I say things like, all is well, or I'm so thankful, right? Or get into that frequency of love, or even say something like, I love you to someone, right? Versus I hate you. Or when we say something like, I love you to ourselves, right? Versus some of the other things we're probably saying. So that's what I see what we're talking about with mantra, is just the whole thing, being aware that mantra words is huge. And part of becoming more conscious and feeling better and flowing better is owning that in a way that's going to work for us, actually create what we do want, right? And play with it as the magic that it is. So mantra, saying to ourselves out loud in our heads, I am calm, right? Or just peace, right? And that to me really goes with the power of things like journaling, because that's so much harnessing the power of our words, right? And getting us so much more aware of how we're using our words, both in our thoughts and in our lives, with ourselves, with others, helping us rewire that a lot, right? So mantra, things like Om, but also things like I am calm, I am love, thank you, God, right? Would be, or spirit, or just thank you, thank you, thank you. Or I'm so blessed and taken care of, right? And just how much that is going to shift us and lift us to use our powerful words like that. So I think that's what I'll say about that. And then I'd like to get us in the journal a little bit before we part. And then the power of sound. right? Which, first of all, I want to impart that, which we've talked about, the sound even of our words is huge with this last tool we were talking about, but also the sounds. Just first of all, we use sound in a lot of ways to help us with our self-care and spirituality. So we use sound, and it's a big tool in meditation. We can use sound just becoming aware of sounds. Like I referenced earlier, just getting into more of a listening mode, a listening mind. So just right now, even taking in all the sounds around you. Is a tool, right? Did you notice it starts to shift your focus, your attention? It starts to quiet your mind and your thinking to just decide to listen more instead of talk to ourselves like we're usually doing, right? So just the power of getting in the listening mode, the listening mind, meaning listening to the sounds, right? Also listening to silence, listening right now to the silence underneath the sounds, is a connecting tool, right? It's helping us, again, quiet that mind, focus that mind, bring ourselves more present. And then when we're more present and we're more quiet, and we're more listening, we're ready to be more receptive, right, to that spiritual thing, if we're interested in that. So whether it just means more receptive to our good ideas, our inspiration, our truth, our heart, our soul, or inspiration, guidance from our spirit team, from our angels, from God, from the universe, from aliens, whatever you like to channel your information from, we're now more ready for that. So using sound to do all those things, to, and just that alone, just the awareness of listening to sounds or awareness of silence is going to right away just help us practice quieting the mind, focusing the mind, coming into the moment, and then also just becoming more receptive spiritually. And like, I love when I listen to Michael Beckwith lately, he'll say, like, to be in that listening mode, like you're just like waiting on whatever you feel like your spiritual source is, like listening so intently, like it's coming, like they're you're about to just like hear the thing, like just listening like that, right? So that's super cool. So sound, the awareness of sounds like that can help in those ways. And again, other reasons we want to help quiet the mind and redirect the mind and focus the mind, in case you're wondering, is because it's often up to no good, right? Often the source of our suffering, if not always, right? Getting in that momentum that isn't helpful, thinking about the worst things, worrying about the worst things, me too, right? So any practices we start to weave in to just quiet that mind, redirect that mind, and use it differently and better. So sound is a really big tool for that, as well as sound affecting our physiology. Like I was mentioning earlier with things like those sound baths. And again, sound is a huge energy. What's the word I'm looking for? Energy. It just is energy, right? So it's going to always shift and change energy to bring in the energy of sound, right? Because sound has its own frequency. So again, that could be the sound of using one of these seemingly just for yoga and meditation things, right? Like a sound bell like this. When I make the sound, the sound helps us in several ways, right? In that, first of all, just listening to it brings us into the moment. It's again, it's another tool to just be able to hone our focus and to decide when I hear that sound, I'm going to come into the moment, and my mind is quieting even just for a few seconds as I listen to that sound. So I'm starting to get to practice quieting my mind by just listening to that sound, right? And then the energy of that sound is moving through me and everything around me, right? So it is transmuting, transforming my energy to even have that sound move through me. Also, quieting And focusing my mind is going to shift and change my energy, right? And my emotions. So you can see a lot of these things, big mental health tools. So using sound like that, and then just deciding when I hear that sound, it's bringing me into the moment. It's bringing me into the senses. It's reminding me to be quiet and listen and even relax, right? And then the energy is shifting us and transmuting things. And then we can weave it in with like breath, right? Always and relaxing. So we can use sound like that, whether we're making the sound or someone else is making the sound, right? We can use silence. But then again, it's also can be about just listening to music that we love. That's where we can imagine playing music. That's where I've been setting this intention to start playing more music. So 2021, that'll be the year to pick up I have a couple of ukuleles and a guitar now, so I don't have any excuses. And even my yoga bell though, right? Because the energy of making music, pretty exciting and transformative and connecting, form of meditation, form of yoga, 100%. So music, any use of music is another extension of this awareness that sound is huge and helpful. So using that more, listening more often to music that makes you happy, right? That makes you feel good, that helps you focus in a way that you want, or just listening to anything that does that for you is going to be part of your building this into your awareness. Like, oh yeah, sound is a huge tool. Oh yeah, I'm going to use it. And especially if I'm not feeling good, if I want to shift the energy instantly, putting on a song, right? How much does that change everything? And there's a reason why, because it's energy work that's 100% tuning you, right? Tuning your mental focus, right? Even just listening to the lyrics is giving you something else to think about and focus on. So it's totally a form of meditation if it's a song with lyrics, but also just honing your focus, bringing you into the moment to listen to the sounds, and then the sounds moving through you as energy work. Absolutely, energy medicine, shifting and changing you, which is going to affect 100% how you feel mentally, physically, emotionally, and even get you more in that spiritual mode. And that's where things like music can be such a tool to help us connect spiritually, right? And that's why things like religious services often involve music, right? Because it's such a connecting thing to let sound be that powerful tool that it is. So whether it's the sound we're making with our own voices, like Om, the sound we make with a specific instrument, just listening to sounds around us like an air conditioner, right? As a point of focus, and to just ground us and bring us into the moment. And or listening to music, playing music, so many ways that we can enjoy this element of sound. And then for sure, the more that we get the chance to be a part of these sound baths and letting sound workers play sound and knowing it's shifting us, but really we can know then that's happening anytime we're listening to music. That's where like live music, right? When we get to experience that, there's a reason that's so magical, because it is. So I hope that helps you understand, stretch and move as needed, how you can be using and bringing in, and why you'd want to add some of these things to your current practices, current ways of tuning you, the mudras, the use and awareness of mantra, your word, and then sound. So huge. And definitely tools of yoga and tools of meditation, right? So let's take an integrating breath. That was a lot of content for you, and hopefully just at least some experiential practice. And then now the idea is now that hopefully you're going to start just playing with these things even today after you get off. Just now, like, oh yeah, I could do a little of this, and oh yeah, playing with that use of sound, and yeah, what's happening with that use of words in my head, and just remember to bring in that kindness and compassion with yourself as the most important medicine that I'm working on too. So I think I could have done this at the beginning, but I'm going to light a little Nag Champa incense for just the intention energy shift of that, I love to recommend doing things like that, burning sage or different things that just help you decide you're making this moment sacred, you're attending to the energy of this moment, letting yourself shift and change the energy of this moment. So you might do that with lots of things. And I believe just because you decided, it's doing that for you. It is. So yeah. So how about at the end here, pull out the journal and let ourselves just ground with a simple dropping in. And again, remember that journal time is totally meditation, totally yoga, definitely energy work, very grounded, and most of all, reconnecting us with ourselves, with what's true for us, and even spiritually, because when we're writing, we start to realize we're writing to sad. We realize it's a chance to be kind of, whether we see it as we're like talking to ourselves, talking to a deeper part of ourselves, talking more to our heart, our soul, getting more in communication with that. Or if you also like to feel like you're talking to God or spirit or source or your spirit team, that you realize, oh, I'm doing that when I'm journaling. And that's why the more I journal, the better I feel, is because I'm reconnecting more spiritually every time I get in that journal, or more with myself, right? Or more with my truth, my heart, my soul. And that is an amazing way to tune us, right? So that's why for me, journals probably my most important practice, I would say, even though the exercises and, you know, all these things I love. And there's a reason I picked what I've picked for this series, but getting into the journal. So how about we just keep it simple and we'll bring it, of course, combined with the gratitude, because that's the other potentially most magical, powerful way to tune ourselves is, I know it's annoying, we've all heard it, but that gratitude works like the bomb every time. So what if we just do a very simple listing some positive aspects of our lives right now, today, just writing a short list for the next minute or two of aspects of your current experience that are going well, are feeling good, that you are thankful for, that you are excited about. And even though there are probably some things that don't feel like that, right? Because there's always something that's not great, it seems, right? Always something we're working on, always something that maybe some contrast that's helping us grow and change. But usually, right, for a lot of us, 99% of things are really going well. And then the beautiful thing is the more that we focus on that with these seemingly silly little practices of just making a list of positive aspects of right now, while you relax, while you breathe. Even taking in sounds with this, being aware that this is a real powerful use of our mantra, right? Our awareness of the power of our words. But it is how this tool is honing our focus, right? Really getting us to pay attention to what's going well, which is actually going to amplify that energetically and even help us be in that energy more to draw in more of those things that we are thankful for. So it's a big energy tool when we get on the page and we bring in the gratitude. Huge, super exciting. So just some positive aspects of right now, noticing how that's feeling as you do that, breathing, relaxing. And again, part of why that gratitude really reconnects us is because that tends to go more with the spiritual perspective, right, on our lives and ourselves. And so when we get in that perspective, we just feel better because we're more aligned with how God's seeing it, how life, the universe, our spirit team, our true self is feeling and seeing life. So that's part of why that gratitude reconnects us so much, right? Because it reconnects us with that spiritual perspective. And then we're entering life in that awareness, right? Of like, oh yeah, I'm so thankful. There's so much going well. I'm so blessed. And then as we become aware of things that we're feeling worried, challenged, scared, anxious, regretful about, right? That now we just have even more energy and awareness to love ourselves through that. Yes, to do the work or even make the changes that we might realize we want to make if we have some of those feelings. But just knowing that the more that we're tuning ourselves with these ways that we can, tuning ourselves in all aspects. That's where this is a holistic approach, not just attending to the body, not just attending to the mind, not just making it a spiritual thing, even though that, if you're going to just pick one realm, but it's all connected, right? And your body even is part of your spirituality. It's part of your guidance. It's part of your intuition. And how your mind feels does relate to how your body's doing, right? And doing things to your body is going to change how your mind is doing, and vice versa. Changing how you're using your mind is going to change how your body's feeling and functioning and even looking, right? And then it's all affecting your life, right? And really, if I could have the biggest lesson currently that I'm putting out there, this is the last 2 minutes, it's all cuddles, you're so cute. It's that it's all energy. Just remember, it's all energy, right? So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling unwell, if you're feeling whatever you're feeling, just start to remember your energy. You're made of energy. It's all energy. Those feelings are energy. What you're experiencing is related to energy and the energy that you're in, and that you, and actually only you, even though other people do play into our energy, right? But only you really can change your energy and manage your energy and take care of your energy. But when you do, it changes everything. And it actually can be just in the simplest ways. And that's my biggest point here, is even just a breath, right, is going to change your energy. Even just practicing relaxing more, going to change your energy so much. And definitely taking care of how we're using that mind, which is what a lot of these tools are doing for us, right? Taking care of that body and getting ourselves back in the body and back in the moment is a lot of how these practices help us. And then just, if we want to be spiritual, deciding to be spiritual, right? And letting our days and our practices be about helping us be in that awareness, because it's going to really change how we feel about life, how we flow through life. If we do want to feel spiritual, be in that paradigm, then let's, right? And it's about the practices that help us be there. It's, for a lot of us, it's not like we just decide to be spiritual and then we just feel that way all the time. That's why there's that thing of practice to help us keep building those feelings of connection, keep developing our sense of what's true, right? And really being aware of how, again, everything we're listening to, everything we're watching, everyone around us is playing into that, is influencing us, right? Influencing everything around us. That's a reason to tune ourselves. But yeah, the more that we tune ourselves spiritually, meaning just tune back in, right? And tune up, the more magical and the better. And again, I would propose and have experienced. So thanks for listening and being here, guys. And reach out if there's any ways that I can help you. Home practices, because even though it can be just like as our focused morning routine, for instance, it really can shift and change everything. And we do what we can to tune ourselves. So love you guys so much. Have a great day out there. Thanks for being here with me and the kitties. And I'll be back next week with next week's installment, which I believe next week's topic is talking even more about spiritual study, the power of that, whatever our spirituality is. I really like to honor that we all have our own ideas about that and feelings and interest in that. And importance of community, right? So see you then, and reach out in between if I can help you. Sending you so much love, guys. Namaste.